And welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a July reading wrap up. I read 10 books in the month of July. It was kind of a slow month, not a great month, and I did not have a single 5-star read. I did read some books that were really good, but I didn't reach that 5-star, so hopefully we can get to that in August. But if you are interested in seeing everything I read and what I rated them, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and keep watching. Okay, so the first book I read this month was The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. Now, I loved The Night Circus. I'm pretty sure I rated that one 5 stars. I loved it, and so I was super excited to read The Starless Sea, and I am at a loss of words when I think about this book. I still remember everything I was thinking and feeling when I read this book because it was such a bizarre experience for me. So I don't even know how to describe this book. It was just so confusing. I had no idea what was going on, and right now I'm reading the summary to see if I can try to explain it to you guys, and it's still not making sense to me. Basically, The Night Circus was kind of the same way, where a lot of people were like, I did not like this book because there was not a lot of plot, it's just vibes, but I loved those vibes. It was very atmospheric, and I felt like it all kind of made sense, and we were building toward a climax in that book. This book, I didn't feel like there was any plot points. I didn't feel like we were moving along. I loved the first 50 pages because of that. I was like, oh my god, maybe we're building towards something. I really like where this is going. The language in it was very lyrical and poetic, and definitely was super inspiring. But the book is 500 pages. It's so long, and it's just filled with that writing, which I feel like would be good maybe if I was cozying up in the winter and I just wanted the vibe. But there was no plot, nothing was happening, and I just felt like it was trying to do too much. It just went over my head, and yeah, I would not recommend this book at all. I think that if you just love really lyrical writing and you just want to be inspired by words on a paper and you don't really care about plot or characters, because I don't feel like there was character development in this one, then I would recommend The Starless Sea. I gave it 3 stars because the writing was undeniably beautiful, but it literally, someone try to explain to me what this book is about. Can't do it, literally can't. Next, I read The Hotel Nantucket by Elin Hilderbrand. I have been wanting to read a book of hers for so long, and I'm so glad I did because I really loved this book. This book is about a hotel in Nantucket, and the main character is Elizabeth, and she is the manager of this hotel. She's recently gone through a breakup, and she is trying to make this hotel the best hotel that it can be so she can get a 5-star review from an anonymous hotel reviewer. And this book was so cute. It was so atmospheric. There was a clear plot. I love this book. It wasn't written like any other book that I've read before. It was written in the third person, and there were just a lot of voice and tone shift in this story that just felt so unique. The author definitely has a very unique tone and voice, and I loved that. I loved every second. I thought I wouldn't love it when I first read it, but so glad I kept going. Loved this. I loved all the different little plot points. There was a ghost plot point. We get the point of view from the ghost through several chapters of this book, and I loved it. I thought it was so good. I gave it a 4 stars. I read it when I was on vacation, sitting at the pool, and it was perfect vibes, and I can't wait to read more of her books. It was genuinely so good. Next, I read a memoir, and that is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. This book is probably the first one I downloaded on Kindle Unlimited. Never read it. Read it, and I gotta say I was a little disappointed. A lot of people don't rate memoirs. I try not to, but if I had to, I would give it around 3 stars because I don't think anything in this book was super unique. It didn't give me a new perspective on life, so it was very down the middle. I can see why a lot of people love this book. I think some of her stories were really good and really funny, and they were really endearing, and I thought that the overall message of this book was really good. I love the way that she talks about love because the author is very real and very candid, and she doesn't make stuff up for the sake of the story, and because of that I felt very trusting towards her, and the way that she talks about love and love between friends and what true love is really did touch me, and I agree with a lot of the things that she said in this book, but again, I just didn't think it was interesting enough. It didn't grasp my attention enough, and I have read other books similar to this sort of topic. But yeah, if you're looking for something on Kindle Unlimited that's a memoir, a lot of people say that this is really good for people in their 20s. I don't know if I agreed with that, but it was a good fun read, but it wasn't life-changing. Kind of along those same lines, I read Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. So this book is written from the perspective of a therapist, and so she's talking about some of her different clients and life lessons learned. I don't think I was in the right frame of mind when I read this, because I read this coming directly off of Dolly Alderton's book. But I did give this one a 3 stars. I think that this was more of like a higher 3 stars. It was good, but again, I just don't think I was in the mood to kind of read something that was nonfiction like that. But yeah, I do recommend it if you are looking for a type of nonfiction book that has humor in it and life lessons. It just wasn't for me. Okay, next I read a autobiography, I would say, that did really touch my heart, that I loved, and that is When Breath Becomes Air. So I've heard about this book a lot, but I didn't really know what it was about. This book was written by a man who was super successful. He became a doctor, and then he got diagnosed with cancer and unfortunately passed away. As his health was deteriorating, he did write this book, and it came out after he had passed away, and I knew all of that before I went into this book, and I just was not mentally prepared for what it would do to me. I was like sobbing, I was wrecked, I was ruined, and this book was so good. Oh my god, like it was really so good. I think everyone should read this book. The perspectives I think were so good and so unique, and he was so candid about his experiences, and I think it's so important for these types of books and works to be received widely in the world, because we're also lucky that he took the time to write, and his priority was finishing this book before he passed away. And it just kind of shows you like the depth of emotions and everything he thought his life was going to be, everything that he prioritized before his diagnosis, and it was just really life-changing. He led a beautiful life, and I think everyone should read this, but definitely get the tissues ready, because it is a tearjerker for sure. Obviously I don't want to rate this. I put it as a 4 on my Goodreads just because it wasn't like 5 out of 5 for me, just because it was so like sad, but I think everyone should read this. Next I read Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. I watched this movie on a plane ride in high school, sobbing, literally couldn't stop sobbing on the plane. So I knew I always wanted to read this book, but I was never in the right like mental headspace just because of how much that movie wrecked me. Finally decided to read it this month, and oh my gosh guys, I enjoyed this book so much. So if you don't know what this book is about, it's about this girl named Louisa who becomes a caretaker of this guy Will, and he cannot move any of his limbs. He got into a pretty nasty car accident, and he has absolutely no will to live or to do anything in life, and she tried to change his perspective on that, and they start to fall in love, and it's so beautiful. I laughed so many times. I thoroughly enjoyed this book so much. I gave it a 4 stars. I would probably give it like a 4.5. Really loved this book. Made me feel all the things, and honestly when I was thinking back on this book and when it was written, I think that the author was honestly bringing up something so important and a really important topic of conversation way before its time. And I don't want to like tell you exactly what it is because that's a little bit of a spoiler, but super impressed with the book. Love the movie, love the book. I think if you want a romance with a little bit more of emotional depth, and I would say this is more of like a classic at this point, it came out so long ago, I would recommend this one. I really enjoyed it, and I'm so glad I read it. Next, I read a fantasy book that's been on my list for a while, and that is Heartless Hunter. This is a romantasy book, super easy to read. If you are not really into fantasy, I think that you can still understand and enjoy this because there really wasn't a ton of world building in this book. In this world, society hates witches and they hunt witches to kill them, and our main character is a witch, but nobody knows that because she hides herself as a witch hunter, and there's an alpha witch hunter and he's just trying to kill all the witches, and she's trying to outsmart him because he began to suspect her of being a witch, and it's fascinating, and they fall in love, and and it's crazy. It kind of reminded me of Powerless a little bit. I did give this one a 4.5 stars. I can't wait to see where the story goes. I didn't love the ending. It was so incomplete, and I just know that I'm going to be so annoyed during the second book because it's going to be like a bridging book that I just don't want to read. But I did love this book. As the first book, I thought it was so enjoyable. There were things happening on every single page. If you want romantasy, if you want enemies to lovers, I think that you would love this book. Super, super easy to read. It went by like that. I read 90% of the book in one sitting. Next, I read Reckless by Lauren Roberts. This is the second book after Powerless. I just have to say I'm super conflicted with this. I did write an in-depth review on Goodreads. You can check it out. I'll link my Goodreads down below. This is a trilogy, and obviously it's a bridging book, and I can't tell you too much about what it's about because it takes off right after the first one. So read Powerless if you haven't. I love that book. 5 stars. Nothing happens in this book, honestly. Like, this book could have been 50 pages. It could have been a novella because it's just a cycle of the same thing happening over and over again, and it's so frustrating. And then the shocking reveal at the end, which I think that a lot of people predicted. I did predict it, and so that was disappointing. But however, I did give this a 3 stars, and the reason why the rating was high for everything that I'm saying is because it was super enjoyable to read. Like, I had genuinely had such a fun time reading this. Like, I kept on wanting to read it, and it was just super enjoyable. The banter was good, but I think even though it was enjoyable to read and it went by fast and it didn't feel like it was dragging, some of the character choices and some of the things the characters would say did not feel at all like the characters that I knew in the first book. It just felt like the characters were doing and saying things that were so out of pocket that just weren't their personality. I didn't think it was a successful bridging book, but it was still entertaining to read. Next, I read Just Last Night. I read this because Haley Pham gave it a 5 stars. I'm glad I read it because I never would have read it if she hadn't talked about it. This is about a group of 4 friends, and their lives have been intertwined ever since they all met each other in college, and they're best friends, and something happened and their lives are all changed forever. So you're kind of dealing with how they all navigate this event that happened. There's not really one specific plot point that this revolves around. It's very messy in the way that things in life are messy, and I did really enjoy the writing of this book. The writing was impeccable. It was so good. However, I did give it a 4 stars, and just a 4 stars, because even though the writing was impeccable, I loved the characters in this book. It did feel a little long at times to me, and I did feel like the story could have been a little bit more concise, and it was a little bit boring. It dragged in parts. I really did appreciate and like the romance that happened in this book because it was very unexpected in an expected way, in a really real way, and I don't think a lot of books portray things as realistically as they could, and I really enjoyed that about this book. So if you do like Emily Henry, if you like more emotional romances, if you like more of that literary fiction type of thing with a sprinkle of romance, I think you would really enjoy this book. Just know that it's like a little bit emotional and it doesn't technically revolve around the romance the whole time. Okay, and then the last book I read this month was The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I haven't read a ton of Christina Lauren books because I did really like Love in Other Words. I do think Every Summer After by Carly Fortune is better. That's my unpopular opinion. But I read a Christmas book by them, I guess, because it's 2 authors, and didn't really like that one, but I heard good things about The Paradise Problem, so I decided to pick it up, and I'm super glad that I did because I really like this book. So this book is about a couple that got married for reasons completely not having to do with love. Like, it was just beneficial for them to get married. They got a divorce, and then they get reconnected later because he needs her to pretend to be his loving wife on a family vacation, and it really does read rom-com to me. It was so funny. I could not stop laughing the entire time I was reading this, and I really did enjoy it. It was a perfect book to read in the summer, a perfect pool book, beach book. I did end up giving this a 3 stars. I'm more of an emotional book, emotional romance reader. That's what I would like to read when it comes to the romance genre. But I was really impressed with this book, and even though it was 3 stars, that's still a really, really good rating, and I would genuinely recommend this book. I don't think anything they've ever written has come anywhere close to Love in Other Words. Like, that was just next level. But I was really pleasantly surprised with this book. Alright guys, that is it for this video. I hope you liked it. I really hope that I get a 5-star read in August because I'm starting to feel a little bit burnt out. So please give me some book recommendations down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!